Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to be actually setting up our website. All of the work we've been doing has led us up to this point, and I'm really excited to get started with this section. So here I am back in the dashboard of my WordPress admin interface. Currently, my website is just the default installation. You can see that here. I've been playing around a little bit, so this is a slightly different header image. And I chose this purple for the default theme, but I'm going to need to change that to my actual brand hue of purple. So we are going to start by customizing this header image and putting our logo in. And then we'll start putting the actual homepage content in here. I'll show you how to do that. This is just default dummy content from SiteGround. This is a blog post. So we will be changing that up. And actually, in this lesson, I am going to be super meta. I'm going to be moving my Rock Your Website site over onto WordPress because I want to take advantage of all those amazing sales funnel functionalities and maybe play with their classroom a bit. So that will be a fun little comparison of WordPress to Squarespace. So the first thing we are going to do is put our logo in, and it's not quite where you might expect to find that interface. One little weird thing about Thrive themes. So we'll go down to the Thrive dashboard, and we'll go into our theme options. And this is where we can edit our theme. So right now it's set to just be a text logo, and that's fine if you don't have a designed logo. I do have a designed logo, so I'm going to do image, and then I'm just going to upload my image. It's already in there, but if it wasn't, I would go into Upload Files, Select Files. So it's already there in my library. And I want the white version. I can choose to have my logo on the side of the menu or the top of the menu. I know I'm going to want it on the side, but just so you can see both, I'll start with top of menu and then we'll come back and change it. I don't want my phone number in the header, but if I was the type of service that did help my customers via phone, I would definitely put it up there. And they've default have the copyright notice in here. We'll come back after we've made our privacy policy page and we'll link it here. And then we've got a couple of global settings here. So display breadcrumbs pretty much just tells you where you are at the hierarchy of pages. And relative time is a funny thing. It's more like event time than clock time. So instead of stamping a blog post as being written in February, it would say written 3 months ago. So I'm going to leave those off and save my changes. And within this Thrive Themes dashboard, there's several other things we can control, but for now, I'm just going to stay on my path, putting in my logo and header. To put my header in, I'm actually going to go into Appearance and then Customize. We can see that my logo's there. Because this is in a smaller browser window, just because I've shrunk my browser down so you can see it up close in the screencast, it's rolling up the navigation, and this is pretty standard. You see it in a lot of Squarespace themes too. But if you want to see how it looks when it's not rolled up, I can just collapse this sidebar here, and then you see it there. Now, if you notice this line is because I chose to have my logo on top of the menu rather than next to it. So it just automatically shows up. That's something we can override with CSS, and if you need to do that, let me know and I'll give you the CSS. And now I'll open up my side menu again, and I can start modifying the header. So you have a few options with what to have appear as your header. Right now it has a background image. You can have your theme default, which in this case is just a dark gray. You can choose a custom color or one of their built-in patterns. They have several that you can choose from. You can see them down this side. But I'm going to just choose the same header image that I have in my original site. I can show you that right here. So I'll go ahead and choose that. And I get to choose how tall my header is now. Now again, it's rolled up because it's showing you the tablet view. So I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit. And now it's gone back to the normal browser view. Now you can see that I've added this bar here. There's no way to do that through the template. I could possibly do it with CSS. But instead, I literally just went into Photoshop and put a purple block on top in a new layer and just adjusted that opacity down so you could see through it a little bit. So here's where you would choose how tall your header is. I can make it shorter or very tall. And I am not putting in pixels there, that's implied. And I'm choosing to have my header image full width. What that means is it will take whatever image I have put up there and it will stretch it out or shrink it according to the size of the browser. This works best if you are following their guidelines of using your header image at 1920 pixels wide. So this is just for those big hero images. For the other images, you want to do it at 800 pixels wide. So full width will stretch or shrink your image so that you can see the full width no matter what size your browser is. Centered is going to show your image at its full width no matter what. So I am following the guidelines. My headline is 1920 pixels wide. And so even when this is shrunk down to tablet size, can you see it is only displaying a fraction of that image. So if I go full width, it's going to shrink it down because it's a smaller screen size. I'll just stretch this out a little bit. So I do not have a primary menu yet because I have not created any pages. This is literally a one blog post site here. But before I do that, I'm just going to float my logo to the side of the menu, and then we will start creating the actual homepage. So I'll save and publish my changes. I'll close out of this menu. And that takes me right back into here where the logo was. So I'm just going to say, I want my logo to be on the side of the menu. I'll show you what that looks like. So now it's to the side of the menu. I think that looks a lot better. So now that we've got our header in there, we need to actually make the home page. Right now, what's showing on that home page is just a dummy blog post. It's just a dummy blog post that SiteGround puts in for you, so you have some content to look at. But what we're going to do is have a page. But since this site isn't primarily a blog, we're going to have a page for our homepage. So first we have to create it. I'm in Pages. I just clicked Add New. And I'm just going to grab the copy off of my existing website. My apologies for the dangling participle. I'm just going to paste my content in here for now. It's kept most of the formatting. These are special CSS image bullet points that I'll put in later. But that looks good enough for now. So I will publish this page. And now it's published it to this URL, but I want it to actually be my home page. So I'll need to go into the settings, reading. And then I can choose to have a static page as my home page. And I will choose that page I just created. So I will save that. And let's have a look. It's done. It's use the theme defaults to style my subheader, so I'll need to go in and change that. But that's starting to look more like the intended page. I'm going to take the background out of this. There's a couple ways I can do it, and they're in the same place, so let me show you. If I go into the page itself, so this is a per page customization. If I go into the page itself and I scroll way down, I have all these options here. And this section is what Thrive Themes refers to as the page title. So I can simply turn that off, and that is what I'm going to do in a moment, because that gives me the least formatting issues. I don't have a bunch of extra white space. But if I wanted to keep it and simply just have either a different colored background or just a plain white background, I could choose that down here. So if that's white, then I can turn this whole area white. And obviously I would need to turn my title a different color so I could see some contrast and actually read it. But instead, because I don't want tons of white space and I don't want it aligned with the whole page, I just want it aligned with that column, I will simply do hide. So there we go. I've gotten rid of the header. Now I'll need to go back in a moment and put a header into this column. So I actually have a header for my page. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to my original site and I'm going to grab some content for this smaller column, and then I'm going to show you how to format that. So I could think of this as a sidebar, but because it doesn't have any WordPress specific functionality in it, I'm just thinking about it as another column. And Thrive Themes does come with various sidebars with various functionality, but for now, this is just really a formatting thing. So to do the easy column making, I get to use something really cool called Shortcodes. And the shortcodes that any Thrive theme comes with comes in two varieties. So the first is various elements that would be on the page, buttons and containers and lines and countdowns. But if I go into Shortcodes 2, these are just columns, and they're stackable columns too. So if I wanted to have to lay out my content in various columns on top of the page, I can totally do that as many times as I want to. Though you probably don't want to get too crazy for that, wouldn't be great for the user. So in my case, I'm going to choose the 2/3, 1/3 layout. So everything that I put between these two tags will be in that first larger column, and everything I put between these two tags will be in that smaller last column. So I'm going to move this to the bottom for now. And then I'll come up, I'll delete the dummy content, take the end of this tag, and I'll put it here. So let's just check that that worked. There it is, so it worked. Great, so now let's put our content in there. So I'll go grab the rest of the content from my original website. And I'll just grab that content. And I'll wrap them in the appropriate HTML tags. A paragraph tag around the paragraph. And a header tag around the header. So the next part of that column is actually a booking widget from Calendly. I'm not sure how to say that. And I'll just grab that JavaScript from my Calendly account. And because I'm in the code section, I can just paste it in. So let's see how that looks. There we go. Looks good. So I see a couple more things I want to fix on here. One is it's doing something a little bit strange with my arrows there. It's somehow automatically converting them to an emoji. And it looks a little silly. So I'm going to change that in the same way we did the buttons. And then after, I will style these headers. It's not quite my shade of purple. That's one of their default colors. And I'm not crazy about it, so I'm going to style those as well. So I'll start with these little arrows. And find them in my page. So here they are. So I'll just make this a paragraph with a special class. And then I'll go define that class. So I'll save my changes. And I'll go into my CSS. So this time I'm going into the CSS for the whole site. I could have done this on the page too, but I just wanted to show you another place where there is CSS. So this CSS will apply to every single page on my site rather than just the page we're working on. So I'll do my element and then a dot because it's a class and then the class name. And I am going to use that before property again to have that element show up before the text. So I've got my curly brackets again. I'm going to define the content, and that is always in quotes. So I will literally copy that, paste it into my content. And then I'll do the after as well. And because I took those strong tags out, I will just bold that text. All right, let's save that and check it. Shift refresh. So it's not picking up the changes when I make them in that universal style sheet. It's probably a cache problem, but I'll just come back here into the page and add it down here at the bottom. So I've got it in here now. The other thing I want to do is center it in that column the way it was before. So to do that, I just do text align center, and that should center it. Okay, now let's have a look at it. Lovely, that's perfect. Great. So it's looking good. I'm going to float this image down here in this paragraph. I think it looks a little bit funny up there by itself. And then I will make that beautiful. So I'll find this image in here. There we go. Looks like it has a lot of junk in there from when I copied it from Squarespace. We can take all of this out. And we can simply say style equals float right. And then it will float to the right of whatever comes after it. So let's just have a look at that. And there it is. I think it looks a little bit awkward, so I'm going to float it left instead. So I'll just float it left instead. Looking better, but it's needs a little bit of a margin here. It's coming up right there, so I can go back in there. And in this little bit of inline style, I can do margin, right, 10 pixels. Okay, that's good enough for now. I think I'm going to play with that formatting a little bit later. But for now, let us change the color of this header. Now, unfortunately, there isn't anywhere in the interface that we can change it directly in the Thrive Themes interface. We are going to have to use CSS, but it's super simple. So to do that, we are going to go into the Big Daddy style sheet, and I'll show you where that's kept. If we go over here to Appearance and down to Editor, you have access to all sorts of files. You could make a big mess if you wanted to, but we're just going to use this style CSS. This is the main style sheet for the whole site. And what we want to do is change the color of every subheader from purple to black. You can just say color black, but now it may not be quite strong enough on its own. So what we're going to do is say every web page that has a body class of page, and that WordPress is just built that way. Every page has a body class of page, so we can use that and it should accomplish our purposes. Beautiful. All right, so the last thing we need to do is put in our brand fonts for these headers. So that is in Themes, Customize. We'll open up our Special Thrives interface, and we'll go into Fonts. Here we go. Now it's going to default to recommended fonts, but I know my font's not under recommended. I do know they have it because it's a Google font. And Google Fonts and Thrive Themes play very nicely together. So I'm just going to hit J to get down to where my font is. And it's going to be Julius Sands 1. There it is. And I'm going to go down to size 40. Works for me. And this is where I'll put in my body font. So my body font is Railway. A nice sans font, easy to read. And I'll save that. And there it is. We recreated the Squarespace site on WordPress, and it was very easy. So that is it for this lesson. And I'll just hit save and publish. Save often, publish often.